My name is Sharon O'Malley Burg. I'm a co-chair of Agencies and Applications, and this is Cynthia Schluter, who is my better half. We are here to train you on the system and also on how to apply for a winning grant with Impact San Antonio. I will say there is a lot of competition, so it's great. The people who are here will get the best advice we have to give, because if Cynthia and I had what we wanted, we would want 100% of you to get the grants that we have to offer. Our mission, just so that you understand, it's a simple one. We are a giving circle of women from Bexar County and the contiguous counties. We empower women and their ability to use money by taking their contribution, which every year is $1,000, and converting that collectively into $100,000 or greater grants every year. The membership of Impact San Antonio selects the recipients of the grants. So there's no one person who says, this is who we'll give to, let's go with it. It's truly done by our community. We give 100% of the donations, the $1,000 contribution, back to the agencies. We also have Friends of Impact and people who are Impact Plus who give a little extra money. And that extra money allows us to pay for some things that it takes to run a nonprofit, including keeping a website, having our videographer here so that we can provide our materials online. So we are very good stewards of the money of our members. And so anybody who wants to join Impact, you're welcome to do it, but if you join today, you're joining next year's group, because last night we closed our membership drive so that we would know how much money we're giving out this year. We thought that would be a better way to train you to know exactly what it is. The good news is we're going to give out 103 $108,000 grants this year. Yay!
Okay, that's a yay. I mean, that's a big yay.
Because we recruit our members every year, we start with zero, and so we're very excited when we can attract as many people as possible to rejoin or join for the first time. So this is a big accomplishment. For those of you who have known us in the past, you might say, gee, that's funny, they've never plussed up before. And that's, as a board, we made the decision that what we're about is high impact grants that can make a significant difference in the community that we care about. And so rather than breaking it up into the extra, up into little grants, we decided let's make them as large as possible. So it's exciting news to have more members than the flat 300. So when you write your application, you're going to propose 108,000, okay? And that we'll tell you more about that as we go. So that's the mission of Impact San Antonio. As I said, what we're going to do today is teach you everything we know, and then you're going to challenge us to figure out what we don't know. But Cynthia Schluter, my buddy, is going to walk you through a scintillating presentation on the system. She told me I can't say it's boring. So system that we use to get your information so that we can share that with our members.
We use a company out of Austin called Community Technology, and that is a company, their sole relationship with us is our repository for the grant applications themselves. So their system that we use is called the Online Data Manager. So what I'm going to do is train you today how to go to their system and how to access the ODM. It is not the most intuitive system. It is an older system. Most likely this is the last year we're going to be using it. So I'm going to teach you the bare bones of what you need to know to get in, to get your information in there so we can get it from you, and then you get to be done with it. So by June 30th, you don't have to worry about this at all. So here we go. The easiest way to get to their site is to go to our website first. Hopefully you've all already been there anyway, but there it is, www.impactsanantonio.org. Once you go in there, this will be the page that comes up. And you're going to click on the Grants tab right there. And when you do, it's going to take you to our Grants page. This part tells you a little bit about the grants, about some of our previous information. But where you're really going to be interested in looking is right here about Learn More. How can your agency apply? Click on Learn More, and it's going to take you to this screen. This is where you will find pretty much every question you have. We hope we have answered in one of these links or in the page itself. So, most important one is this very first one right here, Grant Application Login. You click on that link and it takes you directly to the CTK website. And this is what it's going to look like. That little page is the first thing you'll see. Now, you will want to allow pop-ups. To use this system effectively, make sure your browser is allowing you to use pop-ups, okay? If you remember nothing from today, except one thing, here it is. Every time you come to this screen, when you're working on your application, when it's brand new, when it's in progress, the whole 9 yards, when this screen comes up, your username is the word apply, all lowercase letters. Your password is the word apply, all lowercase letters. So if you remember that word apply, you are like 90% there. We had a lot of questions about that last year, so that's why we're really making a point of saying that. Now, like my computer, for instance, I have a Google Chrome. Now that it knows me and it knows as soon as I go to this, it skips this screen and takes me right in. Your computers may do that, it just depends on what you have. But anytime you come to this screen, if you remember apply, you're golden. Once you click on get in, this is the actual main menu of the ODM system. So far everybody's done the same thing. No one's needed to use their own special password. This is where everybody gets in. How many of you are applying for the very first time this year? Oh, good, lots. Okay, so this is, for a second, I'm going to talk to just those guys because the rest of you are going to get in a little bit different way. If your agency has never, in our 10 years of existence, applied for a grant, you're going to go under the first time logging in, and you're going to click on the word here. Okay? That's going to take you to the screen where you're going to set up your agency profile. If you've applied in the past, even if it was 5 years ago, your agency's profile is still in the system, so you do not have to recreate this. So if you're brand new, you go in, you fill out the appropriate information. It actually is very self-explanatory. Right here, under Organization Information 1, it tells you exactly how to fill out this page. You are then going to make sure that you aren't already in there. So once you've completed it, you're going to click on this duplicate check, and the system's going to make sure your agency isn't already in there. Once it does that, then you're going to be prompted to click Save, and you are set up. If you're an agency who applied previously ever, you are going to go to Applications in Progress and click on the word Here. And that is going to take you to this screen. So for the rest of you, once you create an agency profile for yourself, you aren't going to go back to the first time logging in anymore. You're going to go to the agency Applications in Progress because now you're in progress. So for those of you this year, the first time you're going in, you might say, well, my application isn't in progress. I haven't started anything. You still go to that link, and it takes you here to the agency profile search. You're going to fill in the name of your agency right there. So I made up Ready to Rock. I thought that was a fun agency name. So you'll put in your agency name and click on the word search. That will bring your agency up. You go and you click on that little yellow folder, and that takes you to your password screen. This is the screen and the only time you'll ever need your own password. And I think we caught everybody to give you your password before we started today, but if we haven't given it to you yet, we'll be happy to do that at the end of the session. So here's where you enter your agency's very secret password, and you're in the system. If you forget what yours is and you know you wrote it down but you throw that piece of paper away, send us an email right here and we'll be happy to give it to you. Okay, now you're into the system itself. This is the main menu of the application itself. There are basically only 3 parts of this system that you use. The agency profile part that you already have completed and filled out. If the information is out of date in your particular agency profile, when you go in there, feel free to update that information and save it. Because I know people change from year to year, so feel free to do that. The other 2 parts we use are the required documents upload and the actual application itself. So those 3 are all housed right here. So you can click on any one of those and it's going to take you in. The first one, when you're doing this for the first time this year, let's say you click on the required documents upload, you'll click on create new, and it's going to take you to this screen. There are the required documents that we required last year are the same ones that we are requiring this year. There are 5 of them. This is the screen where you will do all of that work. We really encourage you to upload the documents as a PDF. Sometimes when you upload things in other formats, it comes out kind of garbled. So the safest way is to save it as a PDF and upload it here. There are some files that you will have that, depending upon how you save this information in your system, that cannot be converted into a PDF. That's okay. Upload it that way, but try to convert it to a PDF before you upload, okay? At the very bottom of this is the project budget. And that is the only form that we mandate you use our particular form. All of the other documents you upload as you have them, your financials, your 990s, however you have that. But we do require that you use our project budget application, okay? And that's housed right there. It is the same one as last year. There's that little drop down, but it's pretty easy. Kind of self-explanatory, but you can see once you click to upload a file, you go pick up your file, you go back and upload it, and you're literally done. Very, very easy. This is the application itself, and where you will probably spend a lot more of the time than in the uploads, because the upload should be pretty quick and easy. We just found out last night that we have $108,000 to give away. So now that I know that, I will go back in the system and I'm going to hard code $108,000 right there, because that is going to be your program project budget. Now clearly the budget that you attach has to match the $108,000, but I'll put that in for you guys. You don't have to worry about that. So once you get onto this screen, first thing you'll do is you'll choose which of our 5 focus areas you are applying in. Sharon's going to go into that a little bit more about choosing your focus areas and those things, but this is where you must choose one of those. We, several years ago, Impact San Antonio committed to using the Common Grant application form, and that changed this year. So we have changed our application form to essentially mirror the Common Grant app. It differs a little bit. One of the areas we did get some feedback that the word limit was pretty short on some of those. I don't know if any of you have used this form yet this year, but we were understanding that was kind of short. We did increase some of those, so we did vary slightly from it. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I wanted to ask while we're on this page.
Sure.
The amount requested from Impact SA would be $108,000.
Right.
But could the total project budget be larger if we have matching funds from somewhere else?
Yes, absolutely. Sharon will get into that a little bit more, but what we're going to look for is we need to know exactly what part of that larger budget our $108,000 are being spent on, but absolutely, the whole project could be more than that, yes. The other thing that I like about this year is what information we're asking for is right here, but there's also an explanation this year. Last year we didn't have that, so now it's really clear to you the information we are looking for so that you can best convey your project, your agency, your group to us. So I think that's kind of a new little added bonus here. So you will fill out this whole application. You can go in and work on this multiple times. Just make sure you click save, which is actually at the bottom of this. Just keep clicking save. It's not submitting it or anything, it's just saving your information, and you can work on it over this whole next month. But when you're all done, you have completed your application, all of your uploads are in there, you think it looks beautiful and perfect, you're going to go back to that main screen, and right here under grant application it has submit application. Once you click on that, it's going to bring up this box and it's going to say, are you sure you want to submit? Because once you click yes and you send it to us, that's it. There's no going back and changing. So make sure you really, really know that's what you want to submit before you hit yes. Then your status will change. It will change from not yet submitted to submitted once you're done. What you will not get, however, is an email from us or from CTK saying, hey, thanks for your application, we got it. I know we've all kind of gotten accustomed to doing that, but this system being a little bit older, it does not have that option. So don't be scared that you didn't actually submit your application because you haven't heard from us. You won't hear from us to say we got it, okay? But we need to receive this by June 30th at 5 p.m. And that is a deadline we stick to. So I highly recommend you do not wait until 4:45 on June 30th to submit this. Yes?
Are we able to ask for confirmation by emailing you so we know that it indeed went through?
If it says submitted right there, we got it. Yep. If you have some freaky problem and you're thinking, well, it says submitted, but I got all these, I don't think that even exists, but surely if you're just panicking and you're not sure, feel free. Yes, we'll check and answer that for you. Anybody else have a question? Okay. So you have hit yes, you are done. Now our process, Sharon's going to go into this a little bit, but it kind of fits to add right here. We will have all the applications in by June 30th. The first part of this is our technical review. So our committee is going to be looking at all this that you submitted here to make sure it is technically compliant. Just to make sure that all the uploads were included. And the system does work such that if you're missing, you just forgot to add one of the uploads, it will not let you submit. It's going to give you a little message saying, this is not complete. However, what it doesn't check for is necessarily the accuracy of what's in the upload. You could upload garbage. All the system really knows is, I see there's a document here, so it checks the box, yes, I'm good. So make sure that you have the correct information in the correct spot, okay? The technical reviews will happen early in July. Once those are done, you will receive an email from us, and it's going to tell you that, yay, you're technically compliant, you are being passed on to one of our 5 review teams, depending upon which of the focus areas you're in. And hopefully we do not have to send any of these letters, but if you're found to be not technically compliant, we will send you an email letting you know that. We give you a general idea of why it was. Because we are an all-volunteer organization, we just do not have the ability to sit down with each agency and say, well, your agency, you were lacking here, and if you'd done better there, this would be helpful. We just can't do that, unfortunately. But we do our best to give you as much information as we can. So you can expect to receive an email in the early part of July, so you'll know where you are. And then the process will continue. And I'm going to stop here because Sharon is going to be covering that for us.
She's just jealous because I get the fun part, and so I get to tell you all about the process. But she gave you a good preview. Okay, here we are. How do you submit a winning grant application? How do you do that? What I'm going to try to do is walk through what we've learned. And one of the things that I forgot to mention earlier, we are a 10-year-old organization. We've given out $1,398,000 to the San Antonio community, and in the process we've learned some things. And so you may see that you're going to hear information you haven't heard before, because we're trying to be as efficient as we can be, because a big part of our value proposition is we give greater value to our members $1,000 than they could get on their own. So we put a lot of value-added services onto that money and onto your applications. We try to make sure that the very best programs and projects that can make a big difference in San Antonio to make it a better place to work and live are the projects we fund. So with that, I'm going to walk through some of the elements that are important for you to know. I'll fill in a little bit more detail on the timeline and process, what our requirements are, and then what's different this year in the slide presentation, which is available online, is a case study. I'm not going to walk through everything about the case study, but when you're sitting at your desk at midnight and you're trying to figure out what in the world did they mean by metrics in the community, I'd like you to go to the case study. There's some information there that's helpful. It's not the only way to do it, but it is an example of an application and results that we funded 2 years ago. So you can learn from that. It's instructional. So our timeline. One thing that's different this year, if you were at training last year, you remember it was February and it was cold and we didn't know how much money we were going to give out. So we had to be very broad and generic. One of the things that we did this year is we said, let's wait until the membership is closed so we know exactly how we're going to treat these applications. How much money are we going to give away? And that's why the $108,000 across 3 grants is very important, because that's going to drive your thinking on how you're going to propose and construct your project. So June 1 is today. The gun has sounded. We are training you. The system is open today to start putting your applications in. Do try to go early. It was sad last year. Some of the last minute calls, really it was wasted opportunity. So if you think you're at all challenged by this, try to do it early, learn from your lessons. Do not submit until you're totally confident that you're ready. But do submit by June 30th by 5 p.m. or we can't let you stay in the game. Okay, so it's very important for you to hit that. As Cynthia mentioned, after you've submitted, this team of volunteers and Cynthia and I will come together and do the tech reviews. And we're going to do it as quickly as we can early in July. When we have completed our review, that's when we turn our work, your work, to the agency review teams. And these are teams of people, of our members, who are in the specific focus groups, one of the 5. One thing for you to keep in mind is, since we are a charitable group, we all have our interests, our personal interests. We can't serve on that focus group. So we have to disclose up front what, we're all on boards, we're all involved in nonprofits. We cannot review proposals in an area that we have a personal interest in. That should make you feel a little bit more confident that you really do get to give your information, and you will have an unbiased crowd, except for the things I'm going to tell you have to do. So they will do their reviews. It's going to be a hot summer, as they all are in San Antonio, and they're going to do the best they can as quickly as we give them that information, but they probably won't be finished with their qualitative review until the end of August. At that point, during the course of late July and August, agencies whose grant request does not make the qualitative review will hear from us saying, thank you for submitting, best of luck next year. We will not explain to you why you were eliminated, because we don't know. We know if you got through the technical review that you could compete, but at that point it's like the Olympics. I mean, who ran fastest and best that day? And so please don't get disheartened if you're told that you don't make the second level, because you did a pretty good job at least getting in your technical requirements in order to get to that stage. So that will happen. And then the agencies that are interesting enough that the team's review says, let's go see them. Let's go have a site visit. Let's go to their location. Let's ask them questions. Let's see how they explain things. Maybe we didn't understand it, but we think it's pretty good. And so the site visits will happen in September. They may be finished by September 7th, but September is the targeted month. And then we go through with the agencies, we'll choose their one finalist per focus group. Now, if y'all can help me to recruit 100 or 200 more women for next year, then we may have more finalists from the different focus groups. But right now, given the fact that we only can give 3 grants, we're going to have a finalist from each of those focus groups. And those finalists will present at what we call Grant Award Night, which will take place on October 28th. And our members will vote for number 1, 2, 3. This is the empowering part. We choose. And then that vote is counted by an unbiased group that's not a part of Impact San Antonio, and then we announce the winners that night. We also make them eligible for the money we're going to give them that night. So that's the second thing you have to keep in mind. You're writing a grant request. If your program's not going to happen for 5 years, that's not a good idea, because we're going to expect you to be able to take the money we give and start executing, and you have to spend that money within 2 years. Now, there will be a lot of oversight in the expenditure of the money, and I'll talk about that later, but keep that in mind. So it can be a long-term program, and let's say it is. I think your question was, can the total budget be greater than what Impact's going to get? It can be larger, but if you have to start implementing our piece, you need to identify that piece and start implementing it as soon as you win the grant. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, good.
Sharon, just real quick, you don't have to start implementing it exactly right away, but your clock starts counting on Grant Award Night on October 28th. So I had somebody in the last session had a good question. They're on the school calendar year, so they wouldn't really be able to implement their new thing until the next school year. But that would, as long as your project is completed within the 2 years from October 28th of 2015, you're fine. You can actually start it and complete it all in the second year. That's okay.
As long as you can, and that's a good catch. Now, why is this so important for us to say? One of our recipients in the past didn't realize that they need to get certain approvals from the historic committee before they could start implementing, and they had to give the money back. because they couldn't get it done in the amount of time. So that we just offer this up not as a scare tactic, but just to say be mindful. Make sure you understand what you have to do to get ready to start implementing. So what is Impact San Antonio looking for? Anybody in my training last year? Our training, but my training, because this is my presentation, you were there. And you remember there were 4 C's. This year I have 3 C's, but there are a whole lot more requirements. Let me tell you why I went from 4 to 3. One of my C's last year was about being concise. Well, this year, because we've taken on the common grant application format, that's kind of driving the length of which you can use to respond to the questions. So now I'm just going to talk about the 3 C's. And the first one, and there are 4 slides on this one, so it's very important, is compliance. We do have a lot of requirements up front in order for you to get through the technical review. So I'm going to talk about that. The second thing is the common grant application. We've talked about the fact that we're using a version of it. We're very close to the intent, but our analysis said that we don't think that you're ready to go to so few words on some of the critical questions, and so we're allowing more words, and we also have a question about the focus group. So it's not a huge deviation. Also, the uploads that Cynthia mentioned, that doesn't work for us because those budget forms, a lot of them are about the overall budget of the agency, and we're really about projects and projects and something. Anyway, it'll come to me. Programs, that's it. You raised a hand and I went, oh, okay, I forgot what I was going to say. What are you going to say? Okay, let's go.
On the word restrictions, does it tell you in advance how many words they're going to
Yes.
allow you to fill it in?
And the
Sometimes
system
it
also,
surprise you.
okay, you might be surprised, but we won't be surprised because the system will force you to adhere to our limitations. So I'll walk through that as I go through the common grant application. So that's okay, don't worry about that. But one of the tricks that we suggested is do it in Word first. That gives you your word count, and that's going to be pretty close to what we allow. So we tell you up front the words per question.
The words allowed per question are actually right on the application itself, like on the screen where it said problem or need, it had the explanation of what we're looking for. Right underneath that, it has the word limit. Now, the CTK system actually counts characters, not words. But so it does have a word limit, but if you got exactly 400 words and we have a 400 word limit and it won't fit into that spot, you're going to say, these people are crazy. The truth is, it was a character count. So try and take out just a few words and it's going to pop it right in for you.
So it's close. Now, the third C, and the most important, is you have to be compelling. Because the truth is $108,000 is a lot of money. And we have a lot of nonprofits in San Antonio, and everybody would love to have a grant that size. So it's very important not to just be technically correct, but also be able to tell a great story and help educate us so we understand why you're so great at what you do. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. But first of all, compliance. So the first thing is that you must be present and serving in Bexar County and the contiguous counties around Bexar. What's different this year is we have included Bandera. So all of the counties that share any real estate with us at Bexar are included. That's a good change, and we were happy that we made that adjustment. The second thing is you have to be a 501c3, and you have to show evidence of that, and you know how to do that. You must apply in one of the 5 focus areas. Now, what's different about focus areas for me this year than it was last year, so I'm just going to share my insights, is we're not all about just education or about health or family or arts and culture. What we're about is we want to impact San Antonio. We want to help San Antonio be a greater place, and I mean all of the geography in that. And so the focus groups are a way for us to organize ourselves and for you to organize your grant application in kind of a logical way. Either because it is in your mission set, it's in your will box on what you do. So you might, if you're a school, you might obviously choose education. But let's say you're a school and you're doing a project to replace an air conditioning unit. So is that environment, recreation, preservation? You make the decision. But it's a way for us to organize, and we do ask you in your application, be ready to explain it. Answer the question, why did you choose it? Be ready to explain it if it seems odd, But the example I use on, gosh, it's not necessarily what you would have thought, is Camp received an award, a grant award last year. And you know, their mission set is they provide for special needs individuals a camp, a respite for a week, and their families. And we use volunteers from San Antonio who help with those residents. Well, they needed a new water system. They needed a new sanitation system for the water, or potentially we were going to be facing the camp closing and the water downstream being polluted. So they chose environment, recreation, and preservation as their focus group, and we totally understood it. It made sense. So I'm offering that as an example. It's a proof point that says you do have flexibility, but you have to think it through, and you have to pick one. You can't put in a request for each one. We have had that question before. Okay, so another compliance issue. We will fund a new project or a new program or an existing project or program that's serving a new population or a new area. Okay, so that's a big deal to understand that, but we want new. So what's different? What we're not about is operational grants. Even though your mission set, everybody's mission set needs operational grants, and we commend you on that and keep going, that is not what Impact San Antonio is about. We're about new. And we also are not about let's get you started and let you fall off a cliff. We want something new that can be sustained over time. So it's important to understand who we are and what we're about as we talk about, well, what do we fund, what component do we fund of overhead for a new program or project. We cap it at 10%. 10% of the cost of the program or project, okay? And overhead typically is managerial salaries and the cost to have your building and the support of your building, that type of thing. The ongoing run rate that is spread across your entire agency is typically seen as overhead. Impact San Antonio will not fund. I always hate this bullet because, you know, there's always the not rules, but take a look at the website. It'll walk you through it. We're not about lobbying. We don't fund just a specific church. We're really about projects and programs that make a big difference in San Antonio. So take a look. If you have a question, if you don't know, just send us an email and we'll give you a response. What costs can be included? I touched on the fact that what we want to do is pay for the project or program. So there are staff members that have to do a lot of programs and projects. So we're not afraid to pay for staff unless we're paying for an overhead staff member that's being spread across the agency. What we are concerned about is if we get you started on this project with a fixed asset, a person who's implementing, and you don't have a plan on how to keep that person employed, we're going to be worried about that. Because we don't do the second grant. We're not going to do the operational grant. So you need to have an idea of how you're going to sustain this program over time, unless it's truly got a beginning and an end, and then it's implemented and we're finished. Okay? So that's, I think I'm done with compliance. Oh no, gosh, this is Cynthia's area. She loves to talk about these uploads. She can talk about them all day long, and if you want me to, I will too. One of the things we learned is, when you don't use PDFs, my Apple doesn't like you a lot of times. So the first time we did this kind of technical review, I thought, why are these crazy forms in here? You know, there was just so much gibberish. And what we learned is you really, because of the variety of hardware and software in our world, we really do need PDFs if you want us to be able to see it on my computer. We also learned that we have to do the technical review together because we have different kinds of computers. So we will cover you, we won't just eliminate it, but if you could do it in PDF format, that is very helpful. The forms themselves, each of these is identified. As Cynthia mentioned, if you go into the system, it tells you exactly what you have to upload. And it's very specific. There is one form that you get to choose the style you use, and that's your budget narrative. Okay, so choose it. Make sure it makes sense. Don't talk forever and ever about your budget, but clearly we need to understand if there's $108,000 here, how are you going to use it? And if you need more money, how are you going to get that? You know, we need to understand how the money is spent, because again, we can't do a multiplier effect on people's $1,000 if we're not careful with this money. And so we really end up asking a lot of questions about money. So it's very important that you understand it and explain it well. I can talk, are there any questions about any of these uploads? Go ahead.
On the PDFs, is there a certain size that's a limit? Because I know a few years ago we had that problem uploading, especially with the 990 being so many pages. it wouldn't take it because of the file size.
Right, there was a problem with that. So what we suggested yesterday is scan it. You know, if you scan it, relabel it, convert it to a PDF, you shouldn't have a size problem because it goes in smaller. Obviously,
Because
it's
yes,
not.
there are size limits, and the only one that really seems to give a problem is the 990,
Mhm.
but that should solve that issue.
Yeah, and actually, any large documents that you have, try the scan first and convert to PDF, and it continues to be a problem, send us a message and we'll see if we can work it out with you. Okay?
I have a question about the approved organization budget for the current fiscal year. Our fiscal year ends June 30th. Do you want the one for this year or the one that starts July 1st?
For the, and sorry, the budget,
Fiscal budget.
that would be the current one that you have, so we can see. Now,
Well,
there are two, go ahead.
what we would want your latest budget and your current budget because of the timing. But
Do
we,
Is your new budget done already?
Yes, it's been approved by the board.
I would submit both.
Both.
I
Go with
would
both.
submit both. Because we will not ask you for, you won't be penalized for giving us more good information, yes.
Right, right.
Speaking along those lines, most of you have audited financials, but there are nonprofits that aren't required to do that. So if you do not have audited financials, we need your most current 2 years worth of your financials. If they're not, if they're audited, we only need 1 year. If they aren't, we need the most current 2 years.
Okay.
But of your financial statements, we need the current one that you were talking about. So depending upon how your fiscal year runs, but give us your most current financial statements. So we want to know, how did you look in the past? How have you done? How do you look right now? That's basically what we're trying to understand.
I know you touched on this, but I wanted a little bit more clarification on the budget part. When you talk about funding with the 10% overhead, you say on the one part you can pay for, or you can include personnel, and in overhead you say no managerial salaries. So
Okay, so let me explain myself, because this really is tricky. An overhead function goes across everything in your agency, right? All the pre-existing things that are ongoing. So your executive director, your development director, you know, if you have any paid counselors or whatever your service is all about, those costs go across the mission of your agency. We're talking about a new program or project. So what we want to, we are okay with 10% of the run rate of your overhead. You know, people have to have a place to go, and management needs to play a role. We're okay with that. And if that's the 100% staff that's going to the new program or project, that's going to make us a little worried, because we're going to wonder, how do you run your agency if it's all going to the new program or project? But we recognize that if you have to hire an individual to deploy this thing, whatever it is, there's going to be a cost for that. So you can put that into your project budget. But what we want to know is, where does that person go when our grant's over? How are you going to pay for them? What is your plan? So a lot of that, when you look at financials, what we're trying to understand is risk management. We want to know, what risks are you comfortable with? Now let me look at your track record. Are you a risk-taking organization, or are you pretty conservative? Your statements tell us who you are. You know, just like a company. I know a company's goals when I read their 10K, because they're spending their money on it. I look at your financials and I know how you are as a financial organization. So I want to know your character. I want to help participate in the overhead, but not too much. 10% of the project budget. But if you have to hire someone to do it, you just have to explain it well. But you have to explain the long-term well too.
and can you explain that? Because I know y'all have a sustainability area in the, right? Isn't there a sustainability part? So can you further explain
But-
that in this?
Okay, so you need to know, we have a subcommittee that only looks at financials. So explain it twice. Put it in your budget narrative so that the numbers crunchers know what they're looking at, okay? Then put it in the common grant application, which I'll talk about, so that your reviewers understand you have a plan. If they want more detail, they'll go to your budget narrative.
We can write this though as a project that would not be sustainable over 2 years.
Yeah, it could be that,
Period.
like the
Yes, it could.
wastewater treatment,
Right. It's
once it's
Yes.
done, it's finished, so.
hire somebody to manage it, and then they, with the understanding that in 2 years it's done.
Yes,
Right.
yes, absolutely. It could be a finite project,
Right.
and you're done. And many of them are, yes. I'm just going to go back just to talk some specific numbers as an example, because I know this does get to be confusing. So the 10% number that we're talking about is your whole agency's overhead, your rent, your utilities, all of it, EDs, all of that. You could have a person who are maybe 20% of the $108,000 actually pays for a person's salary over that year or 2 years, however long this is. That 20%, that's okay. That is a different figure than the 10% overhead of the whole agency. So I know sometimes that 10% number scares people off because they think, well, shoot, I'm not going to be able to do this project with Impact San Antonio. So does that, I just want to make sure that distinction is very clear. Yeah.
For new organizations, for instance, we got our 501c3 in October. We filed a postcard, so we don't have a 990. We don't have audited. What would we send?
Everything you got. Yeah, you send us a postcard in place of the 990, upload that document. You are going to need to give us a lot of the financials because we have to be convinced that you are a viable agency to compete for this. And that's, did everyone hear the question? They're brand new. They just started in October, so a lot of what we're asking for, they don't have. We don't want to make you guys not eligible for that, but the onus is really going to be on you to be very convincing to us that you have got your ducks in a row, you're going to be around for a while, and our money's going to something that is an agency that's sustainable.
That's right. And so how do you have a history if you don't have a history? One of the things that we look to is, well, who's on your board? Are these people who have done something like that? Who's the staff that you've attracted? Do they have personal track records? Again, you're in the gray zone here. This is riskier. But we don't want to discourage the new nonprofits from competing. And sometimes there's just a burning need and somebody had to step in, and that's what the new nonprofit represents. But recognize we're looking for risk mitigation. When you don't have information, we need to really understand how you're going to be safe.
To that point, we are actually a separate 501c3 in support of another one that's been around since 2009 that has a huge track record. Can I put a one-pager in there as part of my financial upload to just explain that relationship?
You will be able to do that in the common grant application form. There is a place that who are your collaborative partners. If they are willing to sign a letter that they're taking financial risk, personally I would put that in my budget narrative. Because again, the numbers crunchers are going to have to say, okay, we can bet on this. Let's take it to the next level. So that's a good example of, it's not in our recipe book, but that's a way that you can show that you do have some backing with people who are experienced at this scale. Because again, $108,000 is a lot of money to have infused into your organization to be spent that quickly if you don't already have an infrastructure in place that can support that spend.
Two questions on the 990. One is most recent fiscal year. If you file an extension for the one that's ended, you want the one that's been most recently filed, correct? And just maybe a copy of the extension letter?
Yes, that would be fine.
Okay.
Yeah, so we actually have numbers, not just, oh, by the way, we extended this.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And then do you need all the attachments for the 990? So Schedule A, B, C, D, E, all of them?
We don't need all of it,
We don't.
but if you can scan, again, you don't want to have to go and fix it later. So scan that stuff because it does take up a lot of space and put it in there if you have it, but we really just look for your 990.
In the technical review, we're going to look for that to see that it is in there. If, once you pass that, if our financial reviewers do have some questions about that, we may come back to you and say, oh, we do need this additional information from you. Yes.
So now we're going to talk about the story. What's your message? Has everybody heard elevator speech? You know what your elevator speech is? So how do you quickly describe yourself? How do you quickly describe your mission, why you're important, what you need, what you're going to get done? If you look at the common grant application format this year versus last year, I think it's easier to understand that we're asking for your story, and that's why we adopted it. At the same time, 250 words is not very many words. So on the critical questions, we took that word count up to 400. So you'll notice where we separate. One of the things that's different this year from last year is we break these questions up and tell you what not to put in them. That's important because the forum last year encouraged us all to replicate over and over again. We're saying the same thing. That is not fun to read, not if you're reading 30 applications. So if you are repeating yourself, take that, okay? Be responsive to the questions, but the important part is the story. So if you look at number one, question number one, the problem or need, that isn't about you. That's about the problem or need in San Antonio. That's where you are educating your audience on what they should know about this issue in San Antonio. And there's lots of resources that can help you understand how to describe that. One of them that we just thought about today, and I think it was Joan Curl thought about it, they have a great library here at the San Antonio Area Foundation with wonderful access to databases, good research spot. Use that for number one. So set it up, right? We had an outside speaker that talked about human trafficking last fall, and boy, they just talked about what was going on in the community, and it was a real eye-opening experience. That's what you're trying to do in 400 words with whatever your subject is, whatever your mission set is. Number two, you have 100 words. Told you what the mission was, pretty simple. 10-year-old organization, 1.398 in distributed funds. We fund with our memberships dollars, $100,000 plus grants to make a difference in San Antonio. That's what we're about. That's our mission. Tell us you get us. It's our money. We're using this money instead of going on vacation. We want you to understand this is so important to us that you know we want to have high impact in San Antonio. So work with us on that one. Number three, people to be served. We love you, but we really love the people and the mission set you serve. So think about your customers. Don't get caught up in the people thing. It's just who in the community do you serve? That could be animals, it could be the environment, and it could be individuals. But do keep in mind, we're gonna start asking you for numbers. We wanna know how big. If you're helping 2 things a year, I'm gonna be honest with you, we're probably not the grant for you. Whatever those things are, because again, we want high impact. We want to make this a great place for everybody in San Antonio, whether it be people, animals, or the places you can hang out. And so you have to paint the picture of numbers and scale. Very important. And you need to know who you're serving. So we only gave you 200 words because we figure, hey, if you don't know who you're serving, then we can't help you with that one because you have to be passionate about those people.
The metrics for people that we're serving, is that for the agency as a whole or for the specific project?
No, we're not at our project yet. So this is your mission. This is your agency. Now, are you going to have to tell me how much of that population you serve at the project? Yes. So you can do that in the project description, or you can do it now, but don't get caught up in your project description because then we're going to duplicate, right? So it's okay if you hint to it. This is who we serve, and we're going to continue to serve that same. They liked it better when I was just loud. But, so tell us, inform us. Don't keep anything, we like full transparency, but we want to know your agency's success. That gets us excited about what you're going to do with this project. So now number 4, we're finally talking about our program or project. Describe it. We gave you 400 words on this because it can be challenging sometimes to describe a program or project that's new to an audience that's not familiar with it. You're going to have an opportunity to paint the picture and give us an idea of where you're going on how we know. Okay, so you're demonstrating your insight in how you're describing this program. Don't be clinical. We're emotional people. We want to be moved, okay? We really want this to make a difference, and we want to believe you know what that means. So then number 5, those are 2 options. Answer one of the following bullet points depending upon whether it's a pre-existing program or a new program. Now initially I let the first bullet go because I thought, well, we only do new. But the truth is, it might be a program or a project you're doing right now on the west side, and you're going to take it to the east side. Okay, then you're taking something you've done, it's been successful, and you're going to a new population. But I need to know you know that new population. So you are going to demonstrate that by helping us to understand how you measure success. How have you measured success? How do you know you had success? Is there empirical evidence we can turn to on that success? And then the second part, and how will you expect, I would actually answer both of these questions. And how will you expect that success to continue or be measured with what you're proposing? Metrics, this group, now you probably know it's not me. I'm not totally into the metrics. I kind of like the big picture. But the people who assess, they really love metrics. So Don't feel that you're going to board the crowd if you go too far on how you're going to measure your success, okay? First get my heart, and then tell me how we're going to measure it. Number 6, do you plan to collaborate with anybody? So this goes to your point. Collaboration can be, hey, yeah, we're friends, we work together all the time, we won't hurt each other. Or it can be a very significant collaboration across nonprofits or with other community partners. I mean, if you understand that you have to link into the SA 2020, that could be a partner, but it may not be an equity partner. You are the 501c3. It's important to recognize we're not supporting a joint venture here. Unless all of that supporting documentation has to be about who is the belly button that we push when things aren't going well. So if you have partners, you're still the leader if you've proposed it that way, but you can have different partners to do different things. We don't need tons of information, we just want to know if you have others working with you. As a community, we actually think you can have more impact if you have the right partners. Okay, then, number 7, how does this program or project fit with your organization's mission? If this is like a new venture, you've never done anything like it, high risk. But if you can explain, you've explained now, you've explained who you are, you've explained the area you serve, and you've explained the project. How does this link with your mission set? And I should start feeling like you really know this mission set. You know, again, it's not very many words, but this is not just an impulsive move on your part. This is really where you sit. This is where you lie. How, and number 8, what are your plans to sustain this program and project? We've talked about that a lot. Again, we don't want to fuel something and then, oh, darn it, didn't work out. We don't want to do that. In 10 years, we want to be pointing to this and say, look at what happened because we gave this money. The program project evaluation. Got a lot of examples coming up. And again, I'm not going to read them to you, but this evaluation is what, let's say you're lucky and you get the grant. This is what the measurement team is going to be coming to you to check, and it will tie to payments. So really understand how you measure and how you're going to be able to implement this. You know, so you need to understand what your measurement tools are. You can't just do it conceptually. You have to know, are you going to do focus groups? Are you going to do surveys? Do you look at lives saved? I mean, how are you going to measure this? Okay. Then the organizational description and background. This is where we get to know you. This isn't about your mission, it's about you. Do you have an active board? You know, Impact San Antonio, we're all volunteers. Everybody who does anything with Impact San Antonio has another job. And so when we serve on committees, we're doing this out of our heart. Is that how your nonprofit runs? Do you have a paid staff? How much? Does the staff turn over often? How do you make big decisions? What's been your track record? Do you have a lot of turnover or are things pretty stable? So we want to know you as an organization. Think like an investor. We all invest in stuff, whatever it is. As an investor, do I see this as an organization that's well run? Is it well managed, regardless of the program? Number 11, relationship to the field. This is your competitive intensity, okay? What field are you in and who else is there with you? And how do you stack up against the competition? Again, I'm a businesswoman, so that's how I look at this. I want to understand who else is doing something similar to what you're doing. I had a geekdom guy in here at the last training session, and my example was, you know, if you talk to a 22-year-old with new technology in their head and they have this idea, they think nobody's ever come up with this idea before. And so they'll pitch this to me and I'm like, you know, that's been done a bunch of times. We want to know, you know, when it's been done. Whatever you're proposing, we want to understand that you're seasoned, you know who your competition is, and you know why you're different. And so again, those tools can help you to answer those questions. And then the relationship to the focus group. I think I've overdone this area, so we're good. You only have 100 words. Just, again, we just want to understand you and how you think. So now the exciting part. How do we know that a grant request is going to be perceived to be compelling? And if you're Impact San Antonio. And so this is my rule to all of you guys. Anybody you're selling to, understand them. Right? So it's compelling in the eyes of the beholder. You know what matters to us. We stay pretty true to it. And so with that in mind, will this program or project make a sustained difference in the community? Will it be used in a way, will our money be used in a way that it transforms an element of what the agency can do for the betterment of their served community? Do we understand it? Is it clear? Is it specific? Do we believe in you? Do we think you have a track record that tells us we can trust you? And I'll give you an example. Again, we talked about camp earlier, but this was a water treatment thing. And most people at camp are psychologists. I mean, they're running a camp for people with some disabilities. The chair of their board had been a general contractor. So that chair of the board was a part of the leadership team that was going to implement the new system and had selected the subcontractors. That gave us confidence. So think broadly. It doesn't have to be just the program manager that's on that project, but who else in your enterprise is going to help make this be successful because they have an ability to do that. They've demonstrated they can do that, and can that give us confidence? And over the long term, 10 more years from now, will the impact members be able to point to this investment, that's how we look at it, with pride? Will we be able to say we did that? And again, you know, not everybody loves water treatment, but I'll tell you, we are so proud at camp because it makes such a difference in the world. So recognize we can see beyond the thing to recognize the goodness. And we can recognize your good works if you answer these questions correctly, regardless of what the project is. Does that make sense? Okay. So this is like the accountant's part of the briefing, which of course I'm going to summarize very quickly. But what you can see is that when we look at a grant assessment, when the numbers crunchers and the reviewers are looking at it, they're going to say, what are the goals? What is the evaluation criteria and how do we measure it? What do the outcomes look like? Who do we hit? How do we hit them? How do we know if we've hit success? What's the evidence? What's the community outcome? We have a very broad community we're laying out to support. How do you impact that community? How do you define it, and how are you going to impact it? This is more just for that so that you know, assuming that you get a win, which again, I would love it if all of you could win, but understand the mechanics that happen as the money is administered. And then the case study that we provide is very good. It's the San Antonio AIDS Foundation. I'm sorry, that should have an A at the end of it, association. But they were very good at articulating their grant goals, the way that you could measure the achievement of those goals. They articulated the outcomes beautifully, and then the community outcomes beautifully. And so at midnight, when you're trying to write up your grant request, go back to this. This is a good case study that can give you an idea of this point that I'm probably overstating, which is have metrics, know how you're going to evaluate, communicate that to us. When you look at the community impact of the AIDS Foundation Association, it's enormous, and they measure themselves against the SA 2020 goals of a healthier community. So when you think about how do you say whether you're going to impact the community, there's a lot of information out there, not just SA 2020. There are other metrics of what we're trying to achieve as a community. Look to those. Look outside of yourself and make sure that, you know, all of us who are outsiders to you see the same thing or something similar to what you're describing.
Again, allowing pop-ups, important to make the CTK system work well. Uploading the documents as PDFs, providing your current year-to-date financial statement so we can see what you're doing right now, how's it going, and then the most current audited that you have. So I understand some of your audited, the most current might actually be 2 years ago. That's okay, that's not a problem, but we need the current financial statements. And then this is the fun part. I get to have one fun part that I say. This fall, we're gonna roll out a new program. It's called the Wish List. So for every agency that submits an application to us this year for our grant, whether you win or not, even if you don't pass the technical review, you still get to take advantage of this. We're going to be sending an email to you later this fall asking if you want to, totally just voluntary, but if you want to, you can give us your top 10 things that your agency would like, whether it's computers, school supplies, a vehicle, you name it. You list that, and we're going to, in alphabetical order by agency on our website, we're going to house these wish lists so that when other people, and this happens probably more around the holidays when sometimes folks are looking to say, okay, I've designated X amount of dollars I'm going to give in charitable gifts. They can go to this wish list and see what you've got. It will not be managed. So you're going to give it to us one time, we're going to post it on our system, and it's going to sit there. We're not going to add, we're not going to delete, but we will at least have it out there. So it's kind of a little perk for you guys, just one other site that as other charitable-minded people are looking at different sites, they'll see this, and they may see your name and go, oh, I want to see what they're doing. So that is a perk we would like to offer to folks that apply for a grant. That's who will be on there. Yes?
Will you email all your members that you've posted the wish list?
Yes. We will, and we'll put that in our newsletters as well. So we'll do a good job of getting the word out to our community that that is there.